Hi, I'm Robert Calkin. I am a marijuana business consultant and I have helped thousands of people to start their own marijuana businesses.
Hi, my name is Jason Scobie. I'm a professional collective manager as well as professional bud tender.
Welcome to Careers in Cannabis. Today we'll be talking about advanced bud tending techniques with Jason Scobie, one of the world's best known and respected bud tenders and collective managers. He's an expert in dispensary management. And welcome, Jason Scobie.
Well, thank you very much, Bob.
So I have a bunch of questions I'm sure everybody's going to be really eager to find out about from your perspective, since you're so well known in the industry as being what I call a sommelier, which is somebody that can identify buds or the kind and quality of marijuana, medical cannabis. The first question I had to ask you was just, why did you become a bud tender?
Really, it's following a passion, more of a dream. I really wanted to find a career that I loved and wanted to go to work in it every day. And my career in cannabis was really kind of thrown in front of me. I started dealing with a couple of medicinal marijuana members when I started a delivery service a couple years back. And through meeting each member, I started to learn more and more about symptoms, ailments, and what strains really went with each one. And we had some great results. I was able to help some people get through some really tough times in their life, and kind of transitioned more into a brick and mortar location. And the next step was really not only running a dispensary, but servicing the members and making sure that they were being taken care of.
So what made you think you could be a bud tender?
You know, I would have to say it's more of my personality. I'm a great listener, and I really do want to dig deeper to find out, why somebody is looking at medicinal marijuana as something to help them get through their illnesses and their ailments. And I thought if I could actually get people to open up and work with me, I never considered myself a doctor or a pharmacist, but I do know what strains are effective and the different cannabinoids that work well with each patient. And plus, I enjoy the feedback. And I think that's one thing that's kind of been lost in our business or in our industry, is really trying to find the feedback from the members on what works and what doesn't work. So bud tending to me was really not as much as getting a member their eighth as much it is trying to find that right eighth for that right member.
So what do you have to know to be a good bud tender?
I think you really have to know your members and know what's out there. You have to understand the industry and make sure that you're always trying to find the best medicine for each individual circumstance. There's hundreds of different strains out there. Knowing which ones are effective, for your anxiety or for sleeping, or whether it be having issues eating, but just really trying to find out what strains are out there, what they're available, how you can get them into the shop and get them out to the members. And I think that's really one of the main things that we focus on a daily basis.
So how did you get your job as a bud tender?
Really, just as I stated, it's really, I was out there in the industry trying to find the best meds available. And through acquiring great cultivators, and as part of my team, I was able to have some of the more popular strains and was able to get them into my own shop. And from there, bud tending just really became more of my day-to-day operations. It was never really what my focus was going to be. Mine was more on focusing on the members, and bud tending just really became the name of the game. It was really trying to take that member, sit them down, get them to feel comfortable with me, and then having those strains to help them. And now the term is bud tending.
So what skills do you feel you bring to the table?
Personality, and really just a passion for medicine. I think you have to have the personality to be able to deal with so many different types of people. I was once asked what my average member was like, and after thinking about it for quite a bit of time, I decided there really was no average member. I have members that are 18 years old, of all races, religion, creed, all the way up to 75, 80 years old. And at the end of the day, they all come in for the same reason. They have an ailment and they need something to help them get through the day. So,
So why were you hired as a bud tender?
Really, there was not really being hired. It was really starting my own collective or my group. I decided it was something that I wanted to do and kind of transition more out of a corporate environment and run a collective. Collectives are usually started by individuals and are just groups of, it's just a membership-based organization. So I formed my own and have slowly built it up. There's probably 3,000 members strong that really count on me to be a source for their medicine, and that's what it's how it's viewed. So, really, in this business, in this industry, you really need to take it. To be able to start off, you can either go to shops and ask to work for somebody. I just kind of jumped in both feet first and started my own collective, and I've grown it slowly. It was never a big dream of mine to have 1 million members. It's really more trying to help those members that are in need, especially family, friends, and people within the community that I've grown up with. And slowly but surely, I've just done more and more homework on each one of the medications, and I've taken it almost to another level as far as trying to understand every strain that's available, and that we can get out to the members.
So what are your goals as a bud tender?
My goal as a bud tender, really, there's really not much in a career as far as moving up from a bud tender. You can move up to a management position and really move up throughout the ranks as far as the board of directors go within a collective. But my goal as a bud tender is every day to get that feedback from somebody about how I've helped change their life. We've had some great stories, on some projects that we've worked together with, one woman, for instance, with Parkinson's disease, coming in and not having any idea about medicinal marijuana, being able to explain the process on how she would go about it and why it could help her throughout her just day-to-day life. The first time that we met her, she was on 18 Percocets a day, constipated, in pain and really struggling from her disease.
Waxy skin.
Yep. And we had to help her up the 2 stairs to get her through the front door the first time we met her. And just getting the feedback from her, 3 or 4 days later after trying medicinal marijuana for the first time, just when she came in and said that she was off of the Percocets completely, was probably the one day that I had a tear come to my eye and really said, this is why we do what we do. It works. Is it for everybody? No, but there are those members out there, and when we find them, we can really be impactful. So that's why I bud tend, and that's really what my goal is every day, is really to try to find that one member that we can just change their quality of life just by using such a product with such stigma attached to it. It's to me, I think that's how we're going to end up changing the way people look at it here in the U.S.
So if you were a bud tender and you couldn't start your own collective and you wanted to work for somebody else, what would you look for in a potential employer or collective to join?
Sure. If I was going to go out and look for a collective, one thing I would want is obviously a safe environment. Because the members that I like to deal with, they want a place where they can park comfortably and feel safe. Whether not necessarily have a security guard there, but at least an environment where they can walk in. They don't have to worry about being robbed or feel like they're buying their medicine on the streets. Next thing is I want an honest collective manager, somebody who's always looking to try to get the best medicine into their shops, and not really worried as much as far as the donation goes to the growers. They'll donate the correct amount of money for each strain to get those top strains. Most popular today is known as the OG Kush, or Ocean Grown is what it stands for. And understanding that the collective needs to have that because it does help the majority of their members. It's really high in the cannabinoids that are useful to really sick and ailing members. And then also somebody who understands that the different strains are available, such as your really good sativas and hybrids. And somebody that's always out there looking for the members, just not trying to increase their customer count and trying to run it more like a retail business, but somebody that's actually, getting feedback and asking for honest feedback from the members. That would be a collective that I would want to be a part of. And I think if I was going to be a bud tender on trying to get into this for the first time, those are very few and far between. But again, I would start off with the safety piece. Then I would go into the overall environment. What are the other bud tenders or employees like at the location? Are they people that are compassionate? Are they looking to work with each member, or are they just looking to get them in and out as fast as possible? When you walk into a shop, the first thing you're going to notice is that type. It's either a shop that's a for-profit shop acting as a nonprofit, or a true nonprofit, compassionate place where really your elderly and all the way down to your younger, truly sick members are going to go.
So a bud tender really does need to be concerned with how a collective is managed.
Very much so. I think a lot of the times bud tenders, when they want to get in this industry, they can go work at a shop, like I said, that maybe isn't very well managed, and then they're never really going to get anywhere within their career. They're never going to excel because nobody's forcing them to learn, that Northern Lights was the first genetic hybrid, or that, sometimes green crack can be such a horrible name, but such a great strain as far as the medicinal value for somebody who is looking to increase their appetite, or is struggling through chemotherapy, and and then finishing off the day with a strong Bubba Kush. If you never are in an opportunity where you're getting that feedback from members and understanding those strains and how it affects the ailments, you're never going to grow. So yeah, it can. A lot of times you'll see the bud tenders, they'll start off at a shop and they do it for a couple months, they get burned out because all they're doing is being an order taker and just basically selling marijuana. And it's just, with that, there's a lot of passion involved. So I think if you put yourself in that environment at the beginning, you can have a very short-lived career, in comparison to where you go to a place that's very compassionate and that understands that there's elixirs and tinctures and different products out there, and trying to learn about them. One thing that keeps me going year after year in this business is just the evolution that we've seen. We've seen CBD elixirs in the last year or two come out and shrink tumors on cancer patients. I've seen people with leukemia actually, get out of bed for the first time in a month. Just wonderful things continue to evolve by people going out and not just staying in that traditional retail collective, mindset, and going out and trying to make things better for everybody. And so that's what I would recommend, is really that's why it is important that you go and get into a good collective.
So if you were a potential bud tender, you wanted to become a bud tender, how would you get experience to show that you had that knowledge for your employer?
Well, first off, I would do is I'd read the books that are available to me. That's what I did. Actually, the very first book I read was the Growing Bible. And it's not just specifically about growing, it's about the strains and how long it takes to grow, the different mediums that can be used, whether from cocoa to vermiculite to Rockwell to growing outdoors, just because you have to understand where the medicine comes from and really how it's grown and what the differences are. Once you have that, the concept of where it all begins, then you have to figure out, how a grower does it. If you don't know how it's done, you'll never know if it's good or bad. So setting up, first grow, as a member of a collective, we're allowed to grow for that collective, or as a patient, we're allowed to grow up to 6 plants according to Attorney General guidelines. So just growing a small amount, not necessarily for profit or just more for your personal use, just will help you understand the way strains grow, how long it takes, what the curing and drying process looks like. That way it will help you when you are looking at medicine, that you can understand that this one might have been cut premature because the hairs are clear in comparison to a dark orange or an amber color. Knowing that it might not have been cured properly and actually left out, and the smells never come out, and you kind of get that moldy hint or that taste when you're smoking it. The flushing process, does it work? Why do you flush it? Flush the meds, and how do you do it? So that's usually step number one, I think, for somebody if they really are looking to do this for a career. You don't have to set up a large grow, but set up, one light and a couple plants underneath. Just kind of watch the evolution of that plant go from the clone or even seed all the way through its teenage years into the flowering stage, and understanding the 60 days or 58 days, whatever each strain may take. And then, from the end to like I said, the curing and the drying process. That's a whole art in itself. So, and then once you understand that, then the Growing Bible kind of helped me figure out that start of it. But it also talks a lot about your sativas, your hybrids, your indicas, what THC is, when it burns, and why it affects you the way it does. and through the different cannabinoids, your CBDs, your CBNs, even the flavonoids, and there's really a lot into the medicine that a lot of people don't really study, but it's really just, it's in the books, it's there, it's available for people to look at and read. And just, you have to try the medicine yourself. You have to be somebody who enjoys medicating, who enjoys trying the different strains, and are patient enough to wait for the effects of it, so you can almost, I write them down. The first time I tried, cat piss, I wrote down a 4-page, thing about how the structure of the bud was, the texture, the taste, the smell, and then the effects on me. It was the longest thing I've ever written about any strain, just because, well, come to find out, it's a high-end sativa, and it got my creative juices rolling. And so there are certain things that you need to do to have a good concept on what strains do for each individual, and everybody's different, which is why the constant feedback from each individual member is important. But you can, as the days go on and the years go on, I've noticed that certain strains work better with certain ailments more on a regular basis. For instance, a Granddaddy Purple, or we call it GDP. I noticed for people that have stomach ailments like myself, I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease a few years back. So I've recommended this to hundreds of people throughout the years, and I would say about a 90% return rate has all felt similar effects.
So Jason, if you were a bud tender and you did want to open up your own collective, how would you make yourself attractive to an employer? How would you get that experience?
Okay, the first thing I would do is utilize the resources that are available to you. There's resources that have been out for the last 10, 15 years, such as the Growing Bible, and really understanding the cultivation process all the way through to the curing process and differences of strains. Without understanding how the medicine actually is grown and the different techniques used, you'll never really be able to judge the medicine or grade it. So having a good understanding of why an outdoor is less valuable than maybe an indoor that's grown in hydroponics compared to an indoor soil or even a greenhouse medicine. There's different techniques used to grow for each one. There's different results on each one. You can take the same strain and grow it 4 different ways and have 4 different quality of medicine. Traditionally, people will find that indoor medicine is better, which is kind of a myth. You run into the fact that you've got some really good outdoor strains that are very high in THC, CBDs, and CBNs. They just will traditionally not smell or have a really nice texture, or it's just not going to be as enticing or as far as the look and smell goes. Where you have your indoor strains that really you can let the flavors come out, the looks will always be much more attractive, but not necessarily will it have any more medicinal value. And we see a lot of that nowadays with all the different techniques that are available. So going through the cultivation process is important, understanding the different strains and their values, why an OG Kush is more valuable to a shop than, for instance, a Super Silver Haze. Just due to the fact that indicas have become the more popular strain nowadays because it affects people's more on the inflammation side, pain relief, insomnia. So more of our members seem to gravitate that way. So understanding why we donate more to a member that grows an OG than we do that Super Silver that is more of a sativa that's really less enticing for the members to go for. There's hundreds of different sativas out there that all do the same thing. They're uplifting. They give you more of an energetic feeling, as well as they're great for creative minds. But for truly the people that are in pain on a daily basis, those indicas are much more valuable to them, but they're much harder to grow, they yield much less, and they have a longer lifespan as far as the plant goes. So knowing those things, you want to be able to walk into a collective and be able to take a look at their strains. it impresses me when a member walks in and like, oh, that looks like that's, that OG was grown in soil, or this Northern Lights. Wow, that's really good for an outdoor. Somebody who would understand the differences and know that there's value in in each particular strain, but know why that we charge $45 for the Super Silver and maybe 55 for this OG, because they know that it yields less, it's harder to grow, and it's just harder to get good quality OGs. So when you walk in looking for a job, you want to obviously make sure that you're respectful to the other bud tenders, the receptionist, and know that they're doing the best that they can do, and never belittle them just to show your knowledge. But it is nice when somebody does come in and they understand the strains, and they do understand the different grading systems that I use and a lot of the other shops use as well.
So understanding growing and curing is a big part of bud tending.
It is. I don't think you can work with any product if you don't understand how it's made. And really in our business, we have to understand that growing from a seed or a clone is a difficult process, and know that maybe an indoor system is extremely difficult to set up. Not to be a great bud tender, you don't have to be a great grower. You just have to understand the concept behind it.
So you have to know what the final outcome should be based
Correct.
on the conditions of how they're grown, basically.
Yeah, you can't call a strain an A+ quality if you've never seen a B quality of the same strain. And really, if you don't know that an OG is supposed to turn out darker green and have a specific texture when it's cured properly, you're never going to be able to know when you're looking at a good one or a bad one.
So how do you differentiate strains?
I differentiate strains. Well, I base them specifically. I start off on the indoor-outdoor. It's the easiest to tell the difference visually and smell. And then I differentiate them based on their effects. For me, I try to medicate with everything that comes through my shop. What I always tell people is if I won't medicate with it, I'll never put it on the shelves for you to medicate with it, if it's never up to that quality. And people will respect that just due to the fact that they know I've tried it. I can give them honest feedback on the strain. And I differentiate the strains based off of really how enticing they are for the members. If I have a really good, Larry OG, I'm going to go through and I'm going to let people know that this is more of a sativa OG strain. It's still, is considered an OG, but it's not going to give you that, what we call couch lock feeling. And I just really try to give people a good understanding that this strain might not be as heavy as this one, but it's not necessarily bad. There's something for everybody. I do run across strains that will really put people to sleep right away. A good headband is very difficult to medicate with and function throughout the day, but it's great for those people with insomnia. So I differentiate strains basically on really their indica, sativas, hybrid. The differences between them is really what they do, the effects on each individual. For me, I really focus a lot on the indica side and hybrids that are indica dominant, just due to their medicinal values for pain relief, for anti-inflammatories, and for insomnia. Those are three of the main things that we deal with on a regular basis. When I have people that are trying to get through their ailments throughout the day, then we'll look through some different sativas that are more uplifting and it will give somebody a little bit more energy than some of my heavier indicas will. Such as a good headband, for instance, is a great hybrid, but you'll find it's a cross between a sour diesel and an OG Kush. But it's a great combination because you have a really high-end sativa strain with a great indica strain. We find that it really is great for people with insomnia. It helps them go to sleep while it still allows them to be relaxed for the last half hour they're awake in the evening. But I would not recommend that for somebody to start their day off with that, where I might focus more towards more of a straight sativa like a Super Silver Haze or a Blue Dream even, or a Green Crack.
So what are the general differences between indica and sativa?
The biggest differences are really the effect that they have on each individual. Sativas are higher in THC and lower in CBDs, and what that means is it's more effective for people that are looking for what we call a head high, or you know, to be medicated more effectively throughout the day so they can still function. Sativas being higher in the THC are going to be more psychoactive. They burn differently, they grow differently, as well as they taste differently. But they're not going to be a long-lasting physical effect to you. So if I am dealing with somebody that is looking for more of that pain relieving, I'm going to try to find something that's higher in CBDs. CBDs are very effective as far as for joints, for arthritis, for just everyday back pain and neck pain, which I also suffer from. So I'm always looking for something that's dominant in CBDs and more and lower so in the THC. I'm not always looking for that psychoactive effect as much as I am for the medicinal effect. So, my personal strains that I look for, when I'm trying to get them into the collective, is really your OG Kush, your Bubba Kush, Hindu Kush, and you'll notice the term Kush, which comes from the Kushard Valley term, which basically is basically where the Afghani strains originated from. They grow larger, they grow differently, and yes, they've been used for thousands of years in different parts of the world as a pain reliever, where you have your sativas, which have grown in other parts of the world and really didn't have quite as much medicinal use or value as a strong indica would. And so just that I differentiate the two really based off of those two major cannabinoids. There are CBNs, which goose strains are famous for, which is a Hawaiian strain, great for some of our autistic members, just due to the fact it's very calming and soothing. Not as much as far as the anti-inflammatory as much as it is more for relaxing. And it really never puts anybody on edge, where a very strong sativa or something very high in THC can do.
So what is a hybrid and how do you identify one?
A hybrid is pretty much about 80% of the strains out there nowadays. Through year after year in our industry, we get smarter and smarter people, and people that are trying to consistently improve our industry. So hybrids have been created through, meshing a sativa with an indica, and or even two good sativas or two strong indicas. Basically, it's a genetic hybrid, and it really happens through, what's the term I'm looking for? But it's actually basically through crops. You have a male plant and a female plant. You can take them of different strains and actually genetically improve them by letting them reproduce together, which is how some of your more famous strains have come about. OG Kush is really a hybrid based off of a ChemDog strain, which was a pure sativa. That was developed about 10 years ago by a great grower named ChemDog up in Northern California. And through that, we've seen some of our most popular strains, such as the Sour Diesel, your Headbands, your OG, and the ChemDog is a little harder to find, but still a great sativa. But through different genetics throughout the last 10 years, the OG Kush has come from a sativa strain and is now actually higher in CBDs and lower in THC, making it an indica, which is where a lot of confusion comes in on when you're trying to shop for specific strains. You could see an OG Kush at one shop be a sativa and one be an indica. And until we can figure out testing to be accurate with great reference points and samples, it's always going to be based off of the grower and his knowledge, and then how it's relayed on. But there's only really one way to really differentiate them and try them and see how it affects you personally. So being a bud tender, it is necessary to try the medicine that you are giving to the other members. You have to understand that the different OGs they're out there. There's a Larry OG that's much higher in THC and really an uppity OG. And if you gave that to the wrong member, you could really pretty much waste their day. You could really, while they're out there trying to find pain relief and trying to stay off of their prescription medicine, you could be giving them a sativa, which all you're doing is making them think a little bit more about the pain and the root causes of the issue, and it makes them more think, and it has no pain relieving value whatsoever. So you have to know what you're putting on the shelves at all time.
So what strains do you generally recommend for your patients that have certain conditions?
There are strains out there that aren't as popular, name-wise. Without a lot of the fancy names, you have your Master Kush. Master was one of the first indicas that became popular. It's been around for 30 years now, but as it continues to get better and better, the CBNs and the CBDs that a Master Kush carries have tremendous medical value for a lot of members that are suffering from AIDS. Lupus was one that we helped work with somebody with. Earlier I said Granddaddy Purple, just due to the fact with stomach ailments, it does help people help them eat, as well as it's soothing and calming. So it does help kind of get through the day if you are having any cramping issues. Or for me, I have Crohn's disease, which it can really double me over in pain. And with the right medications, such as a good Granddaddy Purple, it can help me function and get back to work. And the very few sativa strains will I recommend for anybody that is in pain. I'll usually use those for people that are more, that are more depressed or have, I guess, more psychological conditions than physical. I would recommend more of a hybrid or sativa for those conditions.
So is it difficult to tell the difference between an indica and a sativa?
No, actually, when you get to know them all and try them, the way that the strains grow are different. So usually you'll have longer spears. They'll usually become fluffier, airier on the sativa side, where your indicas are going to be much more dense. They'll also find that just the texture of them are differently. And we talked earlier about the way that the hairs grow. A lot of the sativas will be much more colorful and almost more of a flamboyant type of medicine, when you were to look at it at a jar. Where you look at some of your heaviest indicas are going to be very plain looking. Your OGs are never going to be, they're never going to be real shiny or be very colorful. They're going to be more of a dark green, kind of plain, and have a very earthy smell. Where most of your sativas will be more of a fruity type smell or a little bit more pine taste to it.
So tell us again some indicas and what they're good for.
The pain relieving effects on an indica are second to none. It can be matched with any of your opiates out there. CBDs, they affect your endocannabinoid system differently than some of your other 8 or 9 cannabinoids that have been studied. So, a Master Kush or Bubba's been popular, but what we found is a lot of people that have sinus issues don't really prefer the Bubba Kush, so we usually steer them more towards an OG. Northern Lights is one of the most effective of all hybrids, which is a 70-30 cross, but it comes from a skunk number 1 plant, which was developed about 30 years ago. And the skunk number 1 was one of the very first indicas that we had here that was effective for pain relief, but it put people to sleep on a tremendously quick. So they've crossed it over with some different strains, and you still get that great taste and smell with some of the pain relieving symptoms, and still have some good taste more where the sativa comes in.
So name some sativas and what conditions they're good for.
Well, Blue Dreams, Green Crack, your different Pineapple Kush, or actually Pineapple Express, which would be the sativa side. What we found is they're great for people that have problems with focusing. ADHD is very common. We find that a lot of the sativas will not necessarily slow them down, because you'll find that a lot of the sativas are very uppity, and for me, they get my heart racing. But they do affect people as far as their creative skills. We notice a lot of the younger students, when they're like our college level or college age students, they'll focus a lot on the sativas because they need to be able to get through their schoolwork and still be able to, write a strong paper, get good grades, and it kind of helps them, not worry as much about straightening out their papers on their desk or their pencils. They can just kind of focus on one specific task. So Blue Dream is probably the most popular sativa. It's been grown. It was originally grown as 3 parts mango, 1 part Salmon Creek. And the mango strain is it's one of your tastier strains that you'll find. So a lot of people will actually really try to and they'll enjoy the flavor of it, the taste, and it's not as much of a body high or a couch lock as what we'd call it as an indica would be. So it's great for them to function and still, be able to medicate early in the day and still be able to get through the rest of their day without really dragging or being, being somewhat more of a downer.